Looking back over your 16 years here, what are some of your fondest memories?
Okay. Actually, it's more almost over 17 years. I've been thinking about this. I think my fondest memories are not so much about a particular event, although I can remember certain examples of this, but just all the ways in which students express themselves creatively, whether it's in the theater or, chapel music, all that stuff. I always love that, seeing the students. And some of them are just, jaw-droppingly good. So that a lot of my good memories are around those kind of things. Just those simple chapel services where there wasn't anything special and it just felt super intimate and the energy was so nice. Yeah. Lots of good memories.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Too many, really.
It's a hard. There's just so many things. You've been here for so long. Tell me, what has been the most rewarding part of your role as Reverend at our school?
I think the most rewarding thing for me is just having a sense that I was contributing something, that I was having, and particularly that I was able to, I say this, a lot of this is just ego stuff, right? But I do think I was able to contribute to helping create a particular kind of community, with particular values. That was my job, really, but, hugely satisfying to do, especially when it's appreciated and when people feel like they want to contribute. And so it's been great that way. And that's always I've always had that feeling a little bit that my real role and the particular power that I have here is to really talk about what I think is important anyway. So couldn't be better.
Looking back on your time, is there, and this is kind of like the first one, the fondest memories, but is there a particular moment or an event that happened in chapel that stands out either as especially meaningful or maybe something that you'll just never forget? Maybe it was humorous or maybe it was...
Well, one of my, lots of memories, but I always remember I was going to recite a poem that fit into a talk. Nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I think I'll go eat worms. And so I had that poem and I was going to share that and just talk about feeling sorry for yourself and everything. And I went into the Ritz before and there were 3 girls, I can't remember who they were, and they said, Rev, why don't you ever rap in chapel? And I thought, oh my God, that poem, I could easily rap that. And I said, I'll rap it if you guys are the beatbox, if you provide the... And they looked at each other and howled and laughed, and then I said, no, seriously. So they said, okay, we'll do that. Well, the time came and I said, so I have a little poem, an old nursery rhyme that I like to share, but we're going to kind of update it a little bit. And the girls started coming up, and I remember the headmaster was just on my elbow. I just heard him go, oh my God. And they got up and it was, of course, a big success. But that was fun. I loved just trying something a little bit different, and especially when it worked, it was just the best. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you remember what year that was?
It would have been early on. It would have been like maybe 2010 or 11 in there. Yeah. Okay. Maybe 2012.
If you look at yourself from when you first started to present day, how do you think the school or just the community chapel here has shaped you as a person and maybe even deeper as a reverend?
Yeah. So I'm definitely a less fearful person. I would say a way more courageous person than when I first came. And that's partly personal, just sense of confidence in what I've been required to do here. It's just practice and getting comfortable with speaking publicly, all that stuff. But I feel like as a priest, as a minister, like learning how, through trial and error, learning how to take important ideas and take them out of the religious context, take them out, not take them away from the pious language and make them more accessible. That's been a really interesting learning process for me. I think it's one that I was prepared for. I'm kind of open-minded And I think it's the thing that it's my success here probably, is that I've been able to talk about things, taking out the religious language, but leaving in the sense of import, that these are things that we all need to think about, and here's some ideas, and so I've loved it. I really loved it. And I'm so glad people have appreciated it. I mean, that makes it so much better.
What are you going to miss most about being at Shawnigan?
Just the conversations, yeah. I mean, just walking down here, just chatting. I just thought, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is like just so great to have meaningful conversations every single day, all day long, really. And I'd come home after work sometimes and say to Mrs. Rev, I had so many interesting conversations today with so many people, and of all ages, people from 13 to 73. So that's been pretty cool. I don't, it's like a dream. I mean, I don't know any place that's like this that way, where you just look forward to seeing people and getting up in the morning, and it's not a boring place. There's always stuff happening. So there's always surprises. There's always unexpected things. I mean, I could go on. There's so many things about this place I'll miss. I won't miss the work, though. I won't miss having to get up on Saturday morning and get myself together. I'll look forward to rolling out of bed if I feel like it on Saturday morning. Yeah.
I feel like that's a big part of your role, conversations.
I think it is too.
It's almost like an unspoken thing that you kind of take on when you join Shawnigan. I look at the board behind you, I see all the chaplains, and I'm sure they've probably all experienced the same thing, working with young children, the leaders of tomorrow, and also just with the staff here as well. Were you prepared for that, or was that just kind of people just started coming up to you and talking to you? And
Definitely. No, I wasn't prepared for it. I had no idea. Like I kind of stumbled in here. And I knew so little that I just basically thought, well, I'll just see what happens. And that's basically what happened. People would come, but there was something really particularly nice about the way it happened here. Like I got to know a lot of people, and I had a couple of people that took me under their wing, Graham Anderson being probably the main one. But yeah, I always say my job really just evolved organically. And like you say, conversation's a big part of it. And that's also, but it's a huge luxury to have, for me, to have time, and for the school to have time, to have resources to hire somebody just to be around. And, the current headmaster always says, well, your job is just to keep an eye on people. It's the same as my job. Be there as a support. So that's pretty cool, really. And I think it's the essence of what a chaplain is, actually, whether it's hospital or military or educational. The chaplain's job the chaplain should be free from huge responsibilities, just to be available. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing.
So in your role here, over the past many years, you've seen, must be thousands of new students come through here.
Yeah, thousands.
What is, for anyone, let's say in the future watching this, potentially a new student, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to them coming into Shawnigan? I know what I know now, and how I would have changed my experience as an early high school student. And I also see the potential here and the possibilities for students here. So, it's just like, be fearless, just don't get caught up in your head thinking that, things are one way or another. Just be open, like take advantage of the opportunities here. Every opportunity, whatever it is, whatever helps you to grow and whatever helps you to become kind of, be intentional about what you do. But once you decide who you want to be, go for it. Don't hold back. There's nothing gained by holding back. Don't be a jerk, but don't be arrogant or whatever, but always jump in. And that's what Shawnigan's about, always jumping in. Always jump in.
Yeah.
So, I just want to go back to the messages. You've given a lot of messages in this job. A lot. It must be, God, I want to say hundreds, but it could be.
Oh, definitely hundreds.
Yeah. Do you have, what's your favorite message you've ever given? Like, is it a story from the Bible that you turned into a message? Is there one, just to maybe help jumpstart the mind here, I know the story of Peekaboo.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think of Peekaboo because those stories were, like, that was such an unexpected thing. I think when I told the first Peekaboo story about my little kitty Peekaboo, I didn't think of anything of it. It wasn't like a pilot, but all of a sudden, people were asking, students were asking about Peekaboo, and so something else happened. So I started another story. But having that series of, and I looked the other day. I think there were about 15 stories, chapel talks that either reference Peekaboo or our earlier kitty cat, Rufus. But that was so great. Like, it just, people really, it was just a different way to engage people and make it interesting. And I just loved that. So those are some of my favorite talks, and kind of thinking about how to craft that and bring Peekaboo in it was fun to do that work. But yeah, lots of talks. I mean, I have them all, right? And every once in a while I'll pull out an old one when I think it's long enough that no one will remember. But yeah, messages are simple. My message is always the same, really. It's very simple. Be kind, be courteous, like be a lady or a gentleman, and be fearless, and be responsible for yourself. Those are the messages that I think the world would be better off if everyone was that way.
You know what I find really cool about your messaging is that it's very, you time them really well. So for example, if there's something happening within the community, whether that's, it's sad season, like it's the weather's turning and kids are kind of low, you'll give a talk about being happy and stuff like that, and you kind of theme it throughout the year, and you find those perfect times to put them in. Well,
fine, or I know this sounds woo-woo, but I often these would just come to me, and I can't tell you how many times a house director would say, "My God, how did you know what was happening in my house? Like, what you said is exactly what my girls needed to hear, or my boys needed to hear." And I'd think, I had no idea. So there's been a kind of a magic here in some ways. I always feel like I'm just open, but not often those things weren't intentional. Whatever thought came to me, I'd weave it out into a story and a talk. And so I must have been picking up what was going on in some ways. But anyways, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that in itself is a bit of a talent, having a pulse on the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, even if it's just happening in a little group, it's probably, the larger group is being affected, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just know, like, from being in here and listening to you talk, there's been a lot of moments, been like, kind of finger pointing out and be like, yeah, he's right. Like.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Well, I certainly have had lots of nice feedback, and I just feel fortunate. That's all. That like I say, I try to keep my own ego out of it, whether I think I'm done well or bad, or whether somebody enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. I try to consider all that feedback exactly the same. It's just feedback. But it's nice to look now as I'm leaving. Definitely, it's nice to take a moment and, like my friend David Hidley says, like, stretch the suspenders and just feel good about what's happened over the last 17 or 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, you should feel good. You've done an incredible job. You've had a lasting impact on so many people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I feel like I can speak for a lot of the alumni because.
Oh, that's so nice, Elliot. Thanks.
In chapel here, are there traditions that you inherited when you first came to the school?
Yeah.
Can you touch base on some of those that we the viewers don't know about or didn't know?
Yeah, when I came, the morning the chapel on Saturday was much more formally Anglican. It's based on the Anglican morning prayer, but there was always there were the religious phrases, and there was always a psalm. It was much more aligned with the Anglican Book of Prayer. So over time, without very much intention at all, I've kind of modified that and edited it a bit. What I've kept are things like that are really important, the kids love, which maybe is more important, is like the God Squad. That there was a group of kids when I first came who they would do every Saturday. was a bunch of grade 12s, and they called themselves the God Squads. They even had T-shirts. But having that kind of participation from students has been a really important part of it. The singing has just remained what it is. It was great when I came. It's even better now, as far as I'm concerned. Just the basic, I always kept a basic format, just kept it simple. I'm big on simplicity and letting the elements speak for themselves, not crowding up things too much.
Simplicity works.
Simplicity works here very well, yeah.
Speaking of hymns, talk to me about, I want to know what your favorite hymn is in the whole book. Ones that we sing.
Yeah, I think the I Vow to Thee, My Country is perhaps my favorite, It's just a singable, beautiful, epic kind of, I would say it's the hymn that we sing that I don't always have an emotional response, but it's I Vow to Thee is the one I most often have an emotional response. Sometimes I'll just feel overwhelmed with emotion while we're singing it, just realizing where I am and all of that. So that's the hymn that does that for me. I like a lot of the hymns, but I'll just leave it at that. That's the hymn that really can do what it's supposed to do, which is really bring me into the moment and give me that sense of, all kinds of good feelings.
Sometimes there's been moments where, for example, a house director will be stepping down and you'll hear that hymn in full force.
Yeah.
Is there a moment in time that stands out to you with any, like
hymn-wise?
In specific?
Not so much. I just remember Copeman's used to sit up at the front, and I remember there was a guy named J. June Lee. I don't know if you remember him. And he would sing so loud that you could hear him above everyone else. And one day they were singing, I think it was the Lonsdale's hymn, and J. June was just in full voice, and it was hilarious. Everybody just in the chapel cracked up because everyone could hear him, and he was in the front row. He was so loud, and he had a good voice. But I just remember everybody cracking up. It was just hilarious how loud he was. So I remember that, and I'm almost sure it was "How Great Thou Art." Yeah, I don't know. That's one thing I remember.
Speaking of funny moments, was there ever a chapel that, and I don't know, maybe this has happened, where, like, I don't want to say you've lost control, but you were like, oh my God, what is happening?
Not so much that. I remember one morning, it was a long time ago. I think it was Jordan Dives was the student I was talking to about it, because I was tried to do something that I thought was humorous, and like I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just being cheeky and funny, and it was like one of these 8 o'clock on Thursday mornings, and I went through this whole thing, and students nobody cracked a smile, nobody, and it was just like I couldn't believe I didn't get a single chuckle for any of these things, because I just had all these bad jokes. And I talked to Dives after, one of the students, and he said, no, it was okay, it was funny. I chuckled a couple of times. I said, well, you guys were, he said, we're all just still asleep, So I remember that thinking, okay, 8 o'clock in the morning is not a time to just put any expectations on them. They're just waking up.
Okay, so do we have the opposite of a tough crowd? Was there ever a moment where you cracked a joke and everyone...
Oh God, yeah.
Can
for
you remember
sure.
anything specific?
Well, I remember, one thing I remember lots of things. There was one closing day chapel. I don't think it was your year, but that was the year when the grade 12s really made a big thing out of the chapel joke of the day. And so they were puns. And so I went through all of the tapes for that year and pulled out the pun of the day, and I included every single one of them in my talk that year on closing day. And I thought that was one of my more successful, and people really loved it. People really laughed. And of course it was a bonus because I could say whose joke it was, and just wove it together that way. But yeah, often the closing day crowds are the best. They're the best audiences in terms of, I'm pretty sure anything funny I say will get a laugh. They're like ready to have a good time. So I love closing day chapel.
Everyone's just so excited to get out the door.
Maybe, yeah. And the parents are there, and everybody's excited. Yeah. But they're in a giddy mood, so I can Yeah, I've had remember some wonderful closing day chapels. Really good. Yeah.
Okay, now let's get into the superstition. You
Sure.
say the chapel is haunted,
Well,
was haunted?
I was thinking about, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about this today, what the vibe is in this chapel. Definitely there's a little bit of a haunted vibe. And I've seen things in here, I would say, scientifically verifiable, because I was there and observed it. But, you know, like lights going on and off for no reason. Seen it with my own two googly eyes, you know. Yeah. So I believe there's a bit of a haunted vibe, but definitely not anything sinister. Definitely friendly spirits. And some of the, you know, I do remember years ago, before the main building was redone, maybe they chased the ghosts out, but I remember sleeping there one night in one of the rooms and hearing lots and lots of bangs and bumps all night and knowing there was no one there. So there were some spooks in there that night for sure.
Do you know what ghost it is or who it is? Or
I don't know. Yeah. No, you know, there's a rumor that there's a little girl ghost that lives in the chapel here. I've never seen her. I've never seen any specters or anything like that. But
would you like to do a career in review?
A career in review?
You know, just...
Sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
If you want.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to approach doing a career in review. And I think, you know, the two things that I think of are how I've grown through this process, which maybe isn't the most interesting thing, but how the community has grown as well. And I think that I think my biggest accomplishment has been in creating a chapel program, like where people get together regularly and feel comfortable, you know, feel included, feel comfortable, at times feel like, oh, I'm even going to reach out and step out and express myself in some way. You know, creating a chapel that has, I think, increasingly felt like a safe place for people to express their ideas. And by the way, those moments where someone gets up and just really is honest and talks about something difficult, those were, you know, we've had those kind of, we even call them like real Shawnigan moments. So there've been a lot of that kind of thing happening. I'm just so proud of the students. I gotta say, they have never, ever, 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 ever let me down, the students here, not once. I remember one of the first years I was here, the grade 12s did the prefects did a chapel, and they kind of did a bit of a parody about chapel, and I was really unhappy about it. And I said to them, look, I'm starting out, I need to build some trust and some respect for chapel. And I just remember they groveled, they felt so bad. They said, we never even thought of that. And you know, they were so apologetic that it was really, I got that they didn't see it as something that was disrespectful. But I've never been let down, ever, here, by anyone on the chapel or the staff. And I can't be more grateful for that kind of, not just support, but like absolutely knowing that people here have my back and that they're gonna work with me on things. It's incredible, really. So I'm super, super grateful for that. It's nothing I've earned or deserved. It's just the way it's been. So really, really take that with me. That's what I take with me, that experience. And that's what I'll carry with me, that sense of just having a place where they treated me well. Yeah. And I did what I could.